This is Sequin Cook for Dr. Shahan's Assessment Techniques, and today I'm going to be showing you my portfolio. So we're going to begin by discussing the standards that I chose for our project. And we were supposed to choose a Common Core state standard and a content standard to go along with this. So the core standard that I chose was CCSS.ELA-literacy.W6.2. And this one is to write informative / explanatory text to examine a topic and convey ideas, concepts, and information through the selection, organization, and analysis of relevant content. The content standard is a math standard, CCSS.math.content.6.sp.b.5.b. And this is to describe the nature of the attribute under investigation, including how it was measured and its units of measurement. We had to create a checklist and a rubric, and I have for you both my checklist and my rubric displayed. As you can see, some of the points on the checklist was that you solved the math problem and were able to rewrite it as a word problem. That you could give an explanation for how you got the answer, and that you were able to solve your partner's problem. And some of the things on the rubric, a 4 in the math content was that you can describe your work in a sentence and include the measurements. And in literacy, you can explain how you got your answer clearly in 1 or 2 sentences. Whereas a 1 was that you did not describe your work in a complete sentence and you didn't explain how you got your answer. And all other responses range between 4 and 1. We also had to create find a source that we could use to find our students' learning style. And I found one at schoolfamily.com. And forgive me just a second and this will load. So this learning styles quiz can be taken at home or it can be printed off and given in the classroom. And basically what the students will do is they will check which one of these best fits or rather what statement they agree with the most. So for example, if the student would rather have the direct instructions read to them, then they would click number 2, whereas if they prefer to read it themselves, then they would click number 1. And they would go through this and click each one that fits them best, and they would get their results. And then, depending on their scores, they would be either auditory, kinesthetic, or visual learners, and they could go in and learn more about this, and I could use this to determine the best way to teach my students. So, one moment. Sorry, I was actually having some technical difficulties, so I had to go out and do this a different way. Then we also had to create self-evaluation and peer evaluation tools for our students to use. The self-evaluation tool is self-explanatory. They would evaluate themselves and their work, or rather how well they are able to do certain types of work. And peer evaluation is where they do that for one of their classmates. And so, really quickly, these are also hyperlinked. This will load. Computer's being a tad bit slow today. So this is a self-evaluation tool that I created, and in this, the students will basically state what they were supposed to do for the assignment, how well they think they did on it, something that they thought they did really well on, what they had trouble with, if they liked the assignment, and why they did or didn't like it, if they knew it well enough to teach it to someone else, how they would respond if they were asked if they could understand the word problems, if they think that it needs to be retaught, how I could have taught it better, and how often they understand what I'm teaching them. Because if I'm teaching them all the time, or rather trying to teach them, and they're not understanding me very often, then obviously something needs to change in the way I'm teaching them. And then there was the peer evaluation tool. And here you can see that I actually named it classmate evaluation. And in this one, it's very similar to the self-evaluation tool. What was the class supposed to learn? How well do you think your classmate understood it? What do they do well? What do they not do so well on? Do they need more help? And how do you think I could have taught them better? And this really requires some critical thinking, and it has to be done in a very positive manner, or else there could be some issues with embarrassment and even bullying. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. And we also had to find a diagnostic assessment tool, which is something you would use before you even begin teaching the lesson to see what the students know and what the students don't know. And so I found both a test and an answer key for this test, which is provided by Math Mammoth, and this one is for the 5th grade. It's very extensive, and it's over the entire mathematics, 5th grade mathematics section. So it would be given at the very beginning of the year, and could possibly be given throughout to see where they stand, but it's mostly for the beginning of the year. And so I'll give you just a brief look at that. It's not really something you can go over completely, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So this is what the diagnostic tests look like. It has some instructions for giving the test, and then you have what each question is worth, and then you have the actual test, which is rather extensive, talks about all the different points that the students would cover during the entire year. And then you also have the answer key, which is for the teacher, obviously, and it tells you once again what each question is worth, and the answers to each of the questions, because it is an answer key. And you would calculate how well they did over each little section, and then the total over 171, and it takes 137 points to have an 80. And what this test does is it's not so much simply for grade 5, it also helps determine where the student sits at. If the student scores above 80%, then the 6th grade test would be given, and if the student scores well below 80%, then the 4th grade test would be given, and this would determine what the student already knows and if there is a large zone of proximity that needs to be bridged for the student. So next we had to assess our students' knowledge using technology. I found a video on interpreting and recording the results of different types of graphs, which correlates with math.6.sp.5b, which is one of my standards. And I won't make you watch the video because you're already watching the video, and that would be kind of interesting. We had to create a formative assessment as well as a modified formative assessment, which would basically be our formative assessment, only a little different for students with different disabilities. The formative assessment that I created is just a little problem where the students have to find the area and perimeter of the walls, because Sarah is painting her room finally, and this is where they would show their work, and then here's the questions: what is the perimeter of Sarah's room, and how much paint will she need? And as you can see, I have little decals in the corners to make it a little more pretty. And then we have the modified formative assessment, which, as you can see, the little decals are missing. Also, the font is larger so that the students that might be visually impaired can see it better. It also includes instructions for doing the work, so it has step-by-step instructions for finding the answer, and it tells the students which step to look at to find the answer for each one of the questions. And at the bottom is listed how this one is modified. And of course, this would not be on there whenever I actually gave it to the students, but that was just to tell the teacher what it was exactly that I had done. Along with the formative assessment, we also had to create a summative assessment as well as a modified summative assessment. My summative assessment is a test that I have designed for my students. It's not a very long test, it's just about 5 or so questions, more like a homework or something like that. And in this one, once again, it's dealing with finding the area of different shapes. And in this one, there's also the Sarah question once again. Of course, the measurements have been changed up so that students can just memorize the one from the old question, but they should remember the formulas that they use. And then I also have the modified assessment that I created, and this will load in just a second. And once again, the font is larger for the students so they can see better. This version also does not include number 5, which is the more involved question. However, if we were to include that, once again, we would give step-by-step instruction on how to perform the task. And once again, I have the little reminder at the bottom of all the things that I did to modify the version for the teacher. And then we also had to correlate our entire portfolio to the Danielson domains, which is a very in-depth task, and there was so much that you could find to write down about just how it correlated with everything. And I did not put down every single little thing, but I did make sure that everything correlated to at least some of the domains. I'm sure there was a way I could have found something in every single domain, and as you can see, it's not the most organized. This could definitely have been done more advanced, but it still works, and it still tells you how things that you've done with each thing. So there was picking the standards, and as you can see, have knowledge of content, give a grasp of the concepts, creating a checklist and rubric so the students know what is expected of them, give a learning styles assessment so I didn't have knowledge of pedagogy, and so on and so forth, demonstrating the knowledge. Let's see. I'm kind of trying to rush just a little bit because we only have 1 minute left for the video. Oh, there's a culture of learning for domain 2. It provides a subject with the focus on the assessment, which is from domain 3. Students can learn the information from different perspectives, which uses technology, and this is a knowledge of pedagogy. Creating by once again showing pedagogy by modifying the assessments. And we are out of time, and I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Once again, this is Dr. Shahan's Assessment Techniques, and I am Sigmund Cook. Thank you.